Hello, this is Era, and this is my tribute speech. Imagine a time when half the population had no say in the laws that govern them. Emmeline Parkhurst described in her 1913 memoir, My Own Story, women were expected to behave as passive participants in society. Today I will be honoring the suffragettes, women of extraordinary courage who reshaped history and fought tirelessly for the right to vote. Historian Ellen Dubois explains in her 1999 book, Feminism and Suffrage, the movement for women's rights was about more than just the right to vote. It was about fundamentally changing society's perception of women. To quote feminist historian Eileen Creditor, their sacrifices and unwavering spirit have left an enduring legacy, reminding us of the power of perseverance and collective action. The suffrage movement emerged in the late 19th and early 20th centuries as a response to the systemic political exclusion of women in society. Women in the United States and the UK were denied basic rights. They didn't have the right to vote, they couldn't own property, and they weren't allowed to hold public office. Susan B. Anthony documented in The History of Woman Suffrage, Volume 1, the fight for women's rights had deep roots. It required decades of tireless activism. Among some of the most influential leaders of the movement is Emmeline Parkhurst of the United Kingdom. She championed civil disobedience and direct action like leading protests and hunger strikes in order to demand voting rights. She was also the founder of the Women's Social and Political Union in the United Kingdom, and their campaign motto was deeds, not words. Parkhurst herself wrote of the extreme sacrifices women made, including imprisonment and hunger strikes, in order to advance their cause. Another pivotal figure is Susan B. Anthony. She dedicated her life to advocating for women's suffrage in the United States. Dubois' book about the emergence of feminism notes that Susan B. Anthony, alongside Elizabeth Cady Stanton, co-authored the Declaration of Sentiments, which was a document that called for equal political and social rights for women. Now, the Declaration of Sentiments was presented at the Seneca Falls Convention in 1848. And as you can see on this timeline, that is the actual beginning of the entire suffrage movement. Susan and Elizabeth also co-founded the National Woman Suffrage Association, or NWSA, in 1869. They co-founded this in order to advocate for a constitutional amendment granting women the right to vote. Then in 1890, the NWSA merged with the American Woman Suffrage Association, or AWSA, to form the National American Woman Suffrage Association, which focused on state-by-state campaigns for women's voting rights. Now, this isn't to say that their struggle was not met with severe opposition. Many suffragettes were arrested, force-fed, and even brutalized. Historian Eileen Creditor notes in her 1965 book, The Ideas of the Woman Suffrage Movement, that opposition to women's voting rights wasn't just legal, it was deeply cultural, requiring a shift in the entire national consciousness. Despite all of this, their determination paid off. In the United Kingdom, women over 30 gained the right to vote in 1918, with full suffrage being granted in 1928. In the United States, President Woodrow Wilson publicly supported the suffragettes in 1918, signaling a shift in political approval of the movement. The ratification of the 19th Amendment in 1920 secured voting rights for American women, marking a historic victory for both democracy and equality. The significance of the suffragettes' fight extends far beyond their time. Their battle wasn't just about voting. It laid the groundwork for women's rights in politics, education, and the workforce. Eileen Dubois notes in 1999's Feminism and Suffrage, their movement ignited broader feminist movements of the 20th century, inspiring decades of activists. Today, as we exercise our rights to vote, advocate for justice, and challenge inequality, remember that these freedoms were won through their immense sacrifices. Their movement serves as a call to action, urging us to remain vigilant in the fight for gender equality and social justice. Suffragettes demonstrated that real change requires courage, persistence, and unity. Susan B. Anthony's reminder is that progress is never given, it is demanded by those who refuse to be silenced. By honoring their legacy, we reaffirm our commitment to an inclusive and democratic society. Let us continue their mission by raising our voices, advocating for the marginalized, and ensuring equality remains a cornerstone of our communities. To the suffragettes, your fight lives on. We remember you, we honor you, and we carry your mission forward for justice and equality.